With our meeting for the Planning Commission for March 31st. Can we go ahead and have roll call, please? Here.
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 Yeah.
All right, if everyone will stand, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I hope all the commissioners have had the chance to look over the previous minutes. If they have, they'll look over it. And do we have a motion to accept, or do we need any changes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Here.
Here. Yes, yay.
Yes. Yes.
All right, we have no old business, so we will move on to new business. Our first case is case number 2025-027. It's a request for a conditional use permit for retail sale of fireworks at 2020 and 2036 Goodman Road West on approximately 0.71 acres by applicant Dale Wilson and American Fireworks. And I will turn this over to our director, Mr. Andrew.
Thank you. All right, so we have a conditional use permit request for the sale of fireworks on those two addresses mentioned, 2020 and 2036 Goodman Road West on approximately 0.71 acres. These are two adjacent parcels, both with road frontage on Goodman Road West. And these properties are located on the north side of Goodman Road, east of the railroad tracks, in between the Wava Stop and Legacy Kids Academy. And so, although conditional use permits are typically issued for a use on one parcel, the use of both parcels for a fireworks business, it'll provide more space for customers as well as the operation of the business. Scroll down, please. All right, so these are the two parcels we're mentioning here. Can you scroll down a little bit more? All right. These properties are located in the C4 zone. The adjacent parcels are also zone C4. The commercial corridor along Goodman Road is consistent with the nature of a business for selling fireworks. Can you scroll down a little bit? So this outline is blue. This outline in blue, this is primarily the site usage of the overall parcels that's being requested. Now, as I mentioned before, we typically only approve site plans that are on one parcel. Typically, you're not supposed to have any site plans go outside of property lines. But if you scroll back up to the actual property lines, are you able to scroll in a little bit to see the red lines? A really important part of allowing this case to go forward is that parcel to the east, yeah, right there where the cursor is. If you look at the picture closely, there's a piece that extends towards Goodman Road, and so when we had discussed with the applicant about combining these parcels, we realized it would actually create a more permanency for a flag lot, which is what we're trying to avoid in the future. So in most cases, we would tell the applicant to combine these lots before doing a site plan. But this is one of those very rare cases where we thought it would be better to keep these lots separate and then allow fireworks to be sold on the lot just because it's a temporary business, which would then allow a future possibility to add that smaller lot into that bigger lot so we wouldn't have any flag lots. And if anyone has any questions about this, please let me know. So can you scroll back to the site plan? So that's the only reason why we are okay with a site plan extending onto 2 lots. This is not going to be a permanent thing. It's going to be a seasonal business with the tent that comes and goes, with the possibility of these 2 lots being developed separately in the future. And then so for the planning staff review, actually 1 second, go back a little bit. So the site plan above shows the fireworks tent and the associated equipment along with the western side of the site, with parking and access to the property to the east. The side yard setbacks are unspecified in the use chart of the Code of Ordinances as it pertains to fireworks tents. The site plan calls for limestone CR 610 parking lot, which may be approved for a limited time of 1 year in an area that is proposed to be developed in the near future, according to item F under section 3, fireworks sales in the Code of Ordinances. So in preparation for the Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Department staff reviewed the ordinances on conditional use permits and put together a presentation for the commissioners. Here it states all the requirements that have to be answered by the Planning Commission, that have to be investigated by the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission shall investigate all aspects of the application, giving particular regard to whether the proposed conditional use will substantially increase fire hazards or congestion, substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the city, overtax public utilities or community facilities, and be in conflict with the comprehensive plan. When reviewing each of these items, the Planning Department staff only found issue with letter F, which is that the comprehensive plan for the city shows this as a commercial area. However, a gravel parking lot is intended to be granted under the assumption that development of the parcel will happen within 1 year's time. Given that conditional use permits are typically granted 5-year approval period, accommodations are needed to be made to determine the allowance of the gravel lot if it is allowed for the 1-year period for use by the fireworks business. That concludes the presentation. And if anyone has any questions about any of that, please let me know.
All right, any commissioners have any questions for our director?
Yes, I got a question when you're saying about the flight plan. When you explain that, you could give me some clarity on it, because I'm not understanding.
Are you talking about the site plan from the beginning
You're
of the
talking about
presentation?
the F word, flight of, it's a site plan, you say it start with an F. The flag,
Oh, the flag lot?
yeah. what that mean?
Okay, yeah, so, Billy, if you can, follow along the cursor. Basically, imagine a flagpole. You got a flag pole and then a flag on top. It's basically any lot that is going to be shaped like that, with the really skinny part going towards the road. There's a lot of those shapes, those lot shapes in the city, and it's actually highly discouraged by our ordinance, but for some reason, our city has approved a lot of these in the past. And so right now, we currently have a flag lot behind these. Billy, what's the address on that smaller lot?
2030.
Okay, so behind 2020, we have a flag lot, and if the developer were to one day combine these 2
parcels.
these two larger lots, it would basically kind of choke out the lot behind it and create a flag lot almost permanently. But right now, since all three lots are technically vacant, you have the ability to change property lines and fix this issue. So because they're proposing fireworks, which is a temporary use, we still have the possibility to fix this flag lot issue in the future, whether that's with purchasing the lot behind or changing property lines some other way. So it is something that probably should be addressed in the future. This really isn't a really bad thing, but flag lots do create difficulties planning in the future. So as it stands right now, just laying a fireworks tent over the lines isn't really going to hurt anything.
Yes.
That's a nursery on the east side of that lot,
That's a daycare.
daycare. I'm a little concerned about the safety of it, you know, if something happen, you know. I just want to know, just food for thought, you know, I'm a little concerned about that. Thank you.
Andrew,
Yeah, yes, Commissioner.
is there any regulations on how close a fireworks tent can be to a gas station?
Not that we're aware of. We looked everywhere in the city ordinance regarding distances of fireworks sales or fireworks tents or anything relating to that. Distances of that to property lines, to other businesses, and to other buildings, and we didn't see any regulations on that.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
This daycare is a new daycare, right? The new one. one
Yes,
is there.
it's new in my memory. I don't know if it's been a year
Yeah.
or so, but it's a fairly new business there.
And did they stop doing firework there, or they've been having this firework over the years?
I'm not sure I understand.
I don't want them to be penalized because the daycare came in after.
Yeah, what she's asking
Yeah, we need to
is
be-
have we always done has Dale's company always done fireworks in that location previously?
Since
This is
I've been working here, this will be the first time that I remember it being proposed for this location.
Okay.
Right now, it's a grass field with, I think, a previous house foundation and a tree. They have filed for land disturbance permits to start moving these things soon. So busting up the concrete slab and removing it and cutting down the tree. They have gotten a permit for that. But since I've been here, it's always just been a vacant lot with grass, concrete, and a tree.
Right. Is the applicant here? Oh. Go ahead and come up. Yeah, go ahead and ask a question.
Had the fire marshal been invited to this, look at these, conditional use? Would that, like, I'm concerned about that daycare.
No, not yet. We usually get to that. The fire department inspects once they get the tent permit application, and so that's typically when the fire department reviews everything, is with the tent permit application, which will come far after our steps right now.
Or can it be determined for us if they okay to move forward based on their recommendation with that daycare?
Yes, that's typically our process,
Okay.
but I mean, it's a very fair point. I mean, as you had just brought up, that is one of the points for the planning commission to investigate on the list. It is letter B, substantially increase fire hazards. So that's a fair question.
Thank you.
All right, if you can go ahead and give your name and address for us.
Shelley Wilkerson, 4340 Shadow Ridge Drive, Horn Lake, Mississippi.
All right, does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Where was y'all stands located previously?
We have one that's next to Walmart, and then we have one at Highway 51 in Goodman, and one behind Zaxby's.
Any other questions for the applicant?
What are you all doing for safety-wise as far as the, the daycare concerns and also the gas station, which is 2 buildings down? I think that where that old computer shop used to be.
Right. Well, we're ordinating the tent away from the daycare, and, I mean, you can't sell to, children, and you can't shoot fireworks on the lot anyway, so, and, we have the regulations, we have security there overnight, we have a manager there on site during the day, so just keeping, and everything locked up as far as in the containers, so, just,
You know how many feet you are from the gas station?
no, sir, I don't know offhand.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? All right, ma'am, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
All right, this is also a public hearing, so we're going to open it up for public hearing. If anybody wants to speak, you'll have 3 minutes, and then you will be, then that'll be the end. So does anybody want to speak? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. All right, do we have any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. After review of case number 2025-027, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the request by the retail sale of fireworks at 2020 and 2036 Goodman Road West on approximately 0.71 acres by applicant Dale Wilson, American Fireworks, for a period of 5 years.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Can I say something before the approved motion?
Okay.
Before it said for 1 year period in the front.
No, the
because-
1 year was for the gravel part.
Okay.
But we do, usually conditional uses are done for 5 years.
Okay,
So, yeah.
want to make sure.
So, do we have a second? All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Who seconded? White,
Yes.
Stokes,
No.
Carter,
Yes.
Kirkland, yes, Freeman,
Nay.
Fidel,
Yes.
4-2.
Motion passes. All right, moving on to our next case, case number 2025-028, a request for conditional use permit for the retail sale of fireworks located at 7115 US Highway 51 on approximately 1.4 acres. The applicant is Dale Wilson and American Fireworks. And again, I'll turn this over to our director.
Thank you. So, the subject property is located on the west side of Highway 51, north of Outback Drive East, and this location has been the site of fireworks sales in the past under the same ownership. Scroll down, please. All right, so here's the aerial view of the property. And then right under that, you have the zoning, which is C4. These properties are located in the C4 zone. Adjacent parcels are also C4. The commercial corridor along Highway 51 is consistent with the nature of businesses selling fireworks. And then scroll down, please, to the site plan. So above is the submitted site plan. The site plan shows the fireworks tent and associated equipment along the northern side of the site, with parking and access to the property to the south. The site plan calls for a limestone CR610 parking lot, which may be approved for a limited time of 1 year in an area that is proposed to be developed in the near future, according to item F under section 3. Fireworks sales in the Code of Ordinances. However, the gravel lot has existed on the site since at least 2009. So, as with the previous case, our planning staff review looked at the site plan and then the zoning, and then we put together a presentation and reviewed the same things the Planning Commission had to review, which is whether or not this will substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion. whether it will substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the city, overtax public utilities or community facilities, or be in conflict with the comprehensive plan. And similarly as the previous case, same thing, technically, the comprehensive plan did not mention any support for a temporary use of the nature, and so given that the gravel lot has existed since at least 2009, its continued approval should be acknowledged during discussion by the Planning Commission. So essentially, we don't see any issue with this, and that concludes the presentation.
All right, thank you. And if I understand, you said that this one, this particular one has been at this site several years.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew? Does anybody have any questions for the applicant before I bring her up? All right, we'll open this up for a public hearing. Does anybody would like to speak public hearing? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. Do we have any other discussion? All right, do we have a motion?
Have a motion?
All right, go ahead, Commissioner Stokes.
I'd review a case number 2025-028. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the request for the retail sale of fireworks at 7115 US Highway 51 on approximately 1.4 acres by applicant Dale Wilson, American Fireworks, for a period of 5 years.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Roll call, please.
White,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Kirkland, yes. Freeman,
Yes.
Bedell,
Yes.
6 and 0.
All right, motion's approved. All right, moving on to our third case, case number 2025-029, a request for a conditional use permit for the retail sale of fireworks at 7080 US Highway 51 on approximately 10 acres by applicant H&B Enterprises / American Fireworks. All right, I'll turn this back over to our director.
Thank you. So this case is going to be pretty much exactly the same, except this is on the east side of Highway 51, north of Goodman Road, and this location has been the site of fireworks sales in the past under same ownership. And so here we have the aerial view. Technically, everything is pretty much that whole quadrant of Bullfrog Corner is outlined because it's all one lot. That lot has never been subdivided since it's been there. So you have all these addresses on that one lot, and that's why it's all outlined like that. These properties are located in the C4 zone. The adjacent parcels are also zoned C4. The commercial corridor along Highway 51 is consistent with the nature of a business selling fireworks. And so if you zoom in to that northern portion of that lot, here you have the site plan showing the tent, the storage trailer, the camper, and the dumpster, and the electrical panel, as well as the parking. The above site plan shows the fireworks tent and associated equipment along the northern side of the Enterprise Rent-A-Car building, with parking spaces and access to the property to the west of the tent. The site plan calls for a limestone CR 610 parking lot, which may be approved for a limited time of 1 year in an area that is proposed to be developed in the near future. However, the gravel shown in the site plan shows that it has been allowed before. 2025 imagery from DeSoto County GIS shows that more gravel may be required to provide an adequate parking surface for customers and prevent degradation of the site. And so, as with the previous case, the Planning Commission needs to look at whether or not this will substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, whether this will substantially increase fire hazards, whether it will adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, whether it will adversely affect the general welfare of the city, whether it will overtax public utilities or community facilities, or if it will be in conflict with the comprehensive plan. And as stated in the previous case, the only issue that the staff found was that it's not going to be a permanent commercial building. However, with it being a temporary tent on a gravel lot, this does allow for future development, future positive development on that lot. And that concludes the presentation.
Okay, so do we have any questions for our director? All right, is the applicant here? You're the same applicant. Okay, does anybody have any questions for the applicant? All right, we're going to open this up to public. Does anybody like to speak on this conditional use? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. Do we have any other discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion. After review of case number 2025-029, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the request for the retail sale of fireworks at 7080 US Highway 51 on approximately 10 acres by applicant E&B Enterprises, American Fireworks, for a period of 5 years.
All right, do we have a second? All right, we have a second. Do we have any other discussion? Roll call, please. Yeah.
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Liddell.
Yes.
All right, 6-0.
All right, it has passed. Thank y'all. All right, Mr. Prentice is here. All right, so a request by, we're going to go to the next case, 2025-026, a request by Prentice Mitchell to construct a permanent electronic changeable message sign at 2496 Goodman Road West for the purpose of advertising a year-round parking service on the parcel, as well as any other businesses or services that exist in the site in the future. And again, I'll turn this over to our director.
All right, thank you. Just want to ask the applicant, I know you had requested to go last. Is this okay at this order? Okay, all right. This case is a request by Prentice Mitchell to construct a permanent electronic changeable message sign at 2496 Goodman Road West for the purpose of advertising a year-round parking service on the parcel, as well as any other business or service that may exist on site in the future. The applicant previously presented a similar case in 2024, but specifically for a permanent monument sign to advertise for seasonal businesses on that parcel, such as fireworks sales, among other things. The eventual approval by the Board of Aldermen was given for a temporary sign to exist on site for only when a seasonal business is in operation. The applicant maintains that this is not what the request was for, and the applicant is now wishing to present a new monument sign with different dimensions to advertise a year-round service provided on site. The new sign design will conform with the 8-foot height maximum and the 40 square foot sign face area maximum, as well as the 10-foot distance minimum from the right-of-way. The intention of the applicant is to have a sign with similar dimensions and capabilities as the permanent electronic changeable message sign at 1690 Goodman Road West. And so we have a aerial view of the parcel where the site plan is going to be. And if you scroll down, here is the submitted site plan. Outlined in yellow is going to be the designated parking spaces, and then where that red star is with the red arrow, that red star is going to be the location of the monument sign, and that's going to be 10 feet behind the property line on private property. And so the placement of that sign and the height and face area of the sign is going to conform to our sign ordinances. And if you go to the next slide, here is a rendering of the proposed sign. These dimensions are different than what was presented before. We have an 8-foot tall and a 6.5-foot wide sign. And then, yeah, as I said before, shown above is the proposed design of the sign. The sign will not exceed 8 feet in height, and the sign face will not exceed 40 square feet. The proposed dimensions will be 8 feet tall, with a 39 square foot face. And so for the planning staff review and comments, in addition to the sign regulations for monument signs on commercial lots, there's an additional section of regulations pertaining specifically to electronic changeable message signs, which is shown below. And so if you all have any questions about what those regulations are, we can definitely go back to it. And for our review of it matching up with those regulations, we found that the proposed sign will exceed the 20% electronic face maximum. The applicant has pointed out that this is understood and the dimensions being proposed are intentional, as he finds it true that the city of Horn Lake is fine with a car wash on the same road, which is the one I mentioned before, at 1690 Goodman Road West, having an electronic changeable message sign with the face exceeding this 20% maximum. And I've shown the pictures below for context. Their sign's pretty much 50% electronic on that face. And so moving on, as part of the review process for the Planning Commission for any conditional use permit request, the commission must determine whether or not this proposal will substantially increase traffic hazards or congestion, substantially increase fire hazards, adversely affect the character of the neighborhood, adversely affect the general welfare of the city, overtax public utilities or community facilities, or be in conflict with the comprehensive plan. And so looking at all of these criteria, the planning staff did not find it conflicting with any of those criteria. And so for the conclusion, the planning staff recommends approval of this case as presented. When looking at the long-term possibilities for the lot, the installation of the permanent monument sign 10 feet from the right-of-way at the center point of the property line is an excellent location for a sign, but only due to the fact that the applicant owns the parcel directly to the west. The parcel is primarily a parking lot with a driveway entrance connecting to Goodman Road West, currently used as overflow parking by the restaurant on a separate lot. With the high likelihood of these two lots being combined in the future, this would create a logical site design that would remove the need to use the curb cut on the eastern parcel owned by the applicant, which would have a perfectly placed sign in front of a potentially future building on the lot. And shown below is a rendering for context. And if anybody has any questions about this, please let me know. Basically what we were trying to portray here was putting a permanent monument sign exactly where that red symbol is. It would pretty much lock in a development design scheme to where a building could perfectly fit behind the sign, and then parking could be used as is on that currently now eastern lot, where you then could use that eastern driveway entrance to connect to that western parcel. And so combining a lot like this gives excellent access on the main road and the side road. So this is just us thinking like planners right now, just looking at the future possibilities for the shapes of every lot. Not that we're trying to force the developer to do anything, but having a permanent monument sign there would really enhance this lot to force the developer's hand to have a building only go there and have parking only go where it is, and have the currently used driveway entrance utilized for this other lot. So That's just one possible scenario. That's not what the developer's asking for right now, but this is just a future scenario if a permanent monument sign went there. And if anybody has any questions about that, please let me know. That concludes the presentation.
All right, do we have any questions for our director? Go ahead, Commissioner Freeman.
Yeah, Director Andrews. My concern is, when the monument, I'm all for the monument sign. The placement of it, I know about the lots, but is it gonna be on the west side of the driveway, or
Can you
gonna
go
be on
back
the
up to the
east
image?
side?
So where that cursor is, that red symbol up on the screen, where that
Right.
cursor is?
Yeah, I got it on the phone, I seen they had a driveway there.
So the driveway, currently, to access the fireworks sales and whatever else goes on site, customers enter in, can you move the cursor to the eastern side? They access that curb cut. Go to the eastern side.
That's the east side, right, that's the east
Or,
side.
no, sorry, go to the western side. Sorry. Yeah, right there. That's where the customers drive into the lot, and there's parking spaces already there. And so, basically, what we were trying to say is, having the monument sign there, it's not going to mess up any operations on site now or in the future.
Yeah, my only concern was make sure it's not where you're gonna drive in, where it's positioned, based off looking at the GPS, like, is it gonna be in the middle? I'm all for the monument sign.
Okay. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. I'm not aware of any drivers
The
accident.
driveway, they see that, when they
Yeah.
go for the fireworks, you know, I see the little.
I mean, I'm not sure of anybody accidentally driving into that eastern side, if that's what you're asking.
Right, if they decide to move forward with it, yeah, I wanna make sure.
I'm sure that's a question for the applicant. I'm not sure if anybody has accidentally driven into the wrong curb cut. But, this is really complicated. The city could obviously fix the curb cut whenever it wants with permission from MDOT. So that would be a whole MDOT process to remove that curb cut in the future. I fully support doing that, but I know how big of a headache it is to amend these entrances on Goodman Road. But that is something we could explore in the future.
All right, do we have any other questions for our director?
Andrew, I have a question. I'm just thinking, I know that there's already you say there's already parking spots there, but if we have businesses, there's no set handicap parking for this business. So will this play into?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I will absolutely look into that. I know with the temporary businesses, I don't believe we've been enforcing any of the handicap spaces, but with these being temporary lots where people park on gravel, we also don't have any enforcement of forcing painted lines on any gravel spaces. So, and as this exact lot that we're talking about right now is, since it's all gravel on that eastern side, we wouldn't have any designated spaces there. And since the parcel on the western side is technically a different parcel, and we technically don't allow site plans to have parking on a separate parcel, we then wouldn't enforce any handicap spaces for something on a different parcel. So that's why we've never forced anyone to do that. But it is something I can look into.
I just was curious because I know it's talking about long-term and, it's already got parking and things like that. And if he owns it, but the restaurant's using it, so you're looking at maybe not having as much parking available for this business as it shows. So I just was curious because of it being gravel on the others, people may take advantage of this location because it's not on gravel. They have a handicap, they could
Yeah.
park to where it's already asphalt. So I just was curious.
I mean, the way we've been doing it, as you all know, the Planning Commission has full power to approve and reject all site plans. And so whenever any applicant puts together an actual site plan case, it is something that we always enforce on every site plan. I just think a lot of pretty much all the fireworks vendors have been able to get away with having a gravel lot and having unmarked parking spaces, and therefore not having handicap parking spaces. But, you know, as this goes for this case, technically the request is just for the sign, and so the site plan here really only pertain to anything around the sign.
Do we have any other questions for our director? Yes, Commissioner White.
Yes, since now he's declaring this property a yearly.
No, I'm not really following what you're asking. Well, you're allowed to have multiple businesses on one piece of property. I don't believe that's a real regulation. I mean, I could certainly look that up before the board meeting, but yeah, we'll definitely look that up. I've just never heard of anybody requiring, and I think you may be confusing service with business. The applicant's requesting a permanent monument sign there for any business or any service that's going to be on the site. That way we get away from it falling into the definition of a billboard, because technically, you know, you're not allowed to advertise, say, for the ice machine on the adjacent property or for the Mexican restaurant on the adjacent property, because then it would turn into a billboard. So the applicant came back and is requesting this because the board made the argument that they're rejecting the previous request for a permanent monument sign on the basis that there is no business on site, but now the applicant is wanting to request this sign to advertise for the service on the site. And so I don't think there's anywhere in the ordinance that will force you to pave your property based on how you're using your site, unless you're building a permanent building for customers to shop at. If you're building a permanent building for customers to shop at, you have to have paved asphalt or concrete. But if you happen to put up any tents for any reason throughout the year, which you're only allowed a couple times a year, if you were to sell anything in those tents, then you would have to do either asphalt or gravel. You're not forced to do either one if you are selling stuff on the site. I hope that answers the question.
Any other questions for our director? All right, would the applicant please come up and give your name and address?
Good afternoon. Prentice Mitchell, 3774 Conrail Circle, Horn Lake.
How are you doing, Mr. Prentice?
Doing good. How are
Doing
you?
good, okay.
Good afternoon.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Besides your fireworks, what other type of business do you plan to have there?
Well, I'm here not for the fireworks business. I just need to make that clear. This is a hot button. That word gets thrown out there and it goes, but I'm presenting for to have the sign for the parking. I'm not here for the fireworks business.
For the parking?
Yes, ma'am, that's my application, yes, ma'am.
Sir, is your plans on this is like a weekly parking? You know, come to you, get a spot to leave your car while you're out of town, or, explain to us what your parking.
It could be daily, it primarily would be daily. It won't be people just leaving unattended cars. It'd be daily.
Mr. Mitchell, if I'm correct, your parking lot pretty much has already been used by the retail stores next to it, right?
Absolutely, already, and
Even the owners in the restaurant next door pretty much park right there on your lot.
they do. I have contracts with, one of the adjacent owners to lease the property.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Prentice, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. So do we have any further discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Waddell.
After review of case number 2025-026, the Planning Commission recommends approval of a conditional use permit for an electric changeable message sign at 2496 Goodman Road West for a period of 5 years to be located behind the center point of the property line adjoining the Goodman Road West right-of-way.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second. Do we have any further discussion? Roll call, please.
White,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes,
Carter,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Fidel,
Yes.
Christie, yes.
All right, motion's passed. All right, on to our next case, case number 2025-025. A request by Rebecca Ray to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to decrease the minimum acreage required for all used car dealerships to be 1 acre. And now I will pass this back to our director.
Thank you. All right, so as was just stated, and sorry, I'd just like to read the whole introduction. This is a request by Rebecca Ray to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to decrease the minimum acreage required for all used car dealerships to be 1 acre. Currently, our zoning ordinance only allows a used car dealership to exist in the zones of C3, C4, M1, and M2, and only with a conditional use permit. Additionally, as shown in the footnotes in the zoning use chart, any car dealership in C3, M1, and M2 must be on at least 2 acres. Any used car dealership in C4 must be on at least 3 acres. The applicant, Rebecca Ray, is currently trying to sell her residential single-family home at 6501 Highway 51 North, and this property is zoned C4. According to the applicant, the only desirable offer made to the applicant was by a developer who is interested in turning the property into a used car dealership. However, when speaking with planning staff about this possibility, the applicant was told that this property was not large enough, being approximately 1.1 acres, and therefore could not exist as a used car dealership based on the wording of footnote 34 in the use chart, which states it must be at least 3 acres. And right there, I have copy and pasted a screenshot of what our use chart actually looks like. And so as you can see next to used car dealership, under C4, we have C with footnote 34. So that C means you have to get a conditional use permit to open up a used car dealership on this lot. And in addition to that, you have to make sure you follow that footnote 34. And so if you go into the chart, under the chart and look at footnote 34, it says, number 1, minimum dealership size, 3 acres. Number 2, minimum 150 feet of road frontage on principal entrance. Number 3, minimum 20 feet of landscape buffer along all road frontages. Number 4, all parking surfaces must be paved, asphalt, or concrete, no gravel. Number 5, any motor vehicle repair must be fully screened and behind the principal structure on the lot. And number 6, no temporary buildings may be located on the lot. So for our planning staff review and comments, we have all of the possibilities for an amendment to be made. The simplest one would be that would make the most sense for the city and for the applicant would be to change the wording of just footnote 34, number 1, to show 1 acre instead of 3 acres. This would allow the landowner to request the conditional use permit for a car dealership, as the property would then be larger than the minimum size required. However, it should be noted that this would then leave the other zones of C3, M1, and M2 as still requiring 2 acres for any used car dealership. The city could amend both footnotes in the same motion to show 1 acre instead of 2 acres and 3 acres, but this would then result in both footnote 33 and footnote 34 saying the exact same things. On the other hand, if only changing footnote 34, it may be awkward letting the industrial zones have a more strict acreage requirement than the C4 zone. Overall, planning staff agrees that either option would be an acceptable amendment, but changing the requirement in just the C4 zone would obviously create the fewest possibilities for used car dealership requests in the future. The applicant provided the planning department with a letter and report supporting the request, where one of which explains how few properties may actually be affected if this request were to be granted. Copies of the letter and the report can be found below. And so we gave everybody a copy of the letter there, and then if you scroll down some more, the report as well that the applicant submitted to us. And if you scroll down a little bit more, we have examples. We have what our ordinance has. Scroll down some more. And then we have what, keep going all the way through. And then we have what other cities do. That's DeSoto County. We have South Haven. And we have Hernando. And basically the applicant showing that it's technically more strict in the city of Horn Lake, for whatever reason that may be. And they did provide a list of all of the affected properties if this was approved tonight. So they're requesting to make it even and equal for everybody. They cannot do a variance request because you cannot get variance for uses. So the only option they were left with was doing a text amendment, which is why they're wanting to change the text on this. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. That concludes the presentation.
All right, do we have any questions for the director?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
I notice you have number 1 and 2 on the 34, so you want to change the 1 to 100 feet of the roadway, but it's not in the possible motion.
That should be what is currently in the ordinance. The only request was the acreage. So can you scroll back up to go to the footnotes? All right, so footnote 34, the number 1 there. So footnote 34 contains 6 parts, and the request is to change that that minimum dealership size to 1 acre instead of 3 acres. Unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, but this is a smaller lot, so the footage to the road front will be less if you take 150 feet.
I believe you could still have it
I
all
want to make sure.
together like that. I'm not sure if it would.
It wouldn't affect.
I think that's what she's talking about.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I see.
that.
I see. Yeah, well, there's multiple options here. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So,
Oh, and one more thing, after we made the report, after we had typed up this report and sent it out, the applicant did remind us that an option they would like to explore, which we would think is totally permissible, is if y'all are not wanting this to affect everything citywide, you could propose this just for Highway 51. And I've seen, I can't think of any exact examples right now, but I know there's other cities that will limit certain legislation to just one highway corridor. This is very common for uses that cities want to limit. You could totally say everything in your motion and then say, but only pertaining to Highway 51 or something like that. So you could have the change footnote 34 to show 1 acre on number 1, change it to 100 feet on number 2, and limit everything to just Highway 51.
All right, you have a question, Commissioner Freeman?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you brought that up. I see what's happening. I live on that area there. What about, I want to get away from the agenda. What about the rest of the lot? We want to revisit that with the other lots that's dealing with this situation?
I'm
Like
sorry, I'm not
The
sure.
vacant lot, the next to it, they go all the way to, what that little food place? The Iron Grill, whatever. By Cheers. You know, they got other vacant lot dealing with this situation too. Would they be falling in the same category? Like, since you said they make it all 51 the same way, would the other people have any knowledge?
I'm not sure I follow what you're asking.
What we doing there
but
with the conditions
He's-
for this one property?
Yeah, he's asking that if we make these changes, there's other vacant land on 51, and it would affect that land also for this
Yes,
new
yeah,
ordinance.
and that was just a possibility. You could limit it to just Highway 51, or any parcel touching Highway 51 or something like that.
I
I'm sure.
concur with it, but I'm just trying to, do the other people know that on those properties gonna fall in the same situation with Ms. Ray falling under, you know?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's my question.
Or do we have any other questions for our director? All right, is the applicant here? All right, if you'd like to come up, state your name and address.
I'm Rebecca Monterey. My address is 6501 Highway 51 North, Horn Lake, Mississippi.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Yes,
I'm sorry you had to go through this here,
Oh,
being in the C4 and having this house this long, and all the changes went about with the city, which you having no knowledge of, and,
My father and mother built that house in 65. We moved there in 66. I don't know if you read the letter or not, but it explained
I
in
did.
detail what it's about. And so when I retired from school teaching, and when we decided to move closer to our family, which is here, we put our property up for sale, and we had an applicant that, or a buyer that came, and through the process, we found out that it was zoned commercial, unbeknownst to us. And my dad might have known, but he didn't discuss that with us, and we were grandfathered in, so that's why we are here to help sell our property and to be able to move on.
any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. I'm gonna open it up for the public. Does anybody like to speak? All right, we're gonna close the public hearing. Do we have any other discussion, or do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
All right, go ahead.
After review of case number 2025-025, the Planning Commission recommends amending the Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, Article X11, footnote 34, number 1 and 2, to show minimum acre size and 100 feet footage along the Highway 51 corridor.
All right, so the motion is to accept with a 1 acre lot size and 100 foot from frontage on 51. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Roll call, please.
White? Yes. Stokes?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Kirkley, yes. Freeman,
Yes.
yes. Adele?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, moving on to our next case, case number 2025-047, a request by the City of Horn Lake to allow special exemption for grand opening signage for new businesses that are trying to advertise themselves. And now I will turn this back over to our director for a presentation.
All right, thank you. So, for the introduction, I'm just going to go through the whole introduction. This case is a request by the City of Horn Lake to allow a special exemption for grand opening signage for new businesses that are trying to advertise themselves. Many new businesses prefer to have a grand opening that involves feather flags, pennant flags, bandit signs, yard banners, wall banners, and inflatables, as well as other items that draw attention to their buildings. Currently, our Code of Ordinances does not allow any business to have feather flags, pennant flags, bandit signs, yard banners, and inflatables in any location at any time. Generally, it may not be a good idea to let every business have all these items all year round, as this would cause massive clutter all over the city. So it makes sense why there is a ban on this. However, we are thinking that it may be possible to limit this clutter to just the new businesses that open and only for a limited amount of time. And so up on the screen there and in the report, we made sure to send everybody the current text on all of the prohibited signs. So this is an exact copy and paste of all of our prohibited sign wording in our ordinance. And so we have numbers 1 through 28 there, showing all of the prohibited signs in the city. And then so, additionally, we also put in this report a separate section. Listed below is the exact wording of the sign section titled Specific Provisions for Temporary Signs Requiring a Permit in our Code of Ordinances. And we posted all of the regulations on banners here. And just to be clear, banners are, if you read through all of this in this section here, all banners have to be attached to a building. You are not allowed to put any banners out in any grass area. You can't stick metal poles in the ground and have a banner, regardless what the banner says. We will not permit that under our current permitting process. And then so in this section titled Specific Provisions for Temporary Signs Requiring a Permit, we also have construction signs, subdivision location signs, live advertising, and holiday and seasonal decorations. And so for our planning staff review and comments, we have that it will make the most sense to add a new category to specific provisions for temporary signs requiring a permit titled Grand Opening Signage for New Businesses. So enumerated in this section could be language allowing every new business to have any amount of bandit signs, inflatables, feather flags, pennant flags, menu boards, yard banners, and wall banners on their parcel, but only if they fill out an application for a permit, which shall permit them to have such signage for 90 days from the payment date of the permit. And so the reason we would need to permit it is so code enforcement can have a way to measure when this starts and stops. And so this will allow code enforcement to have an exact starting point to measure the permissible time period. Additionally, the city would then only allow the businesses who have opened within 1 year from the date of application to apply for this permit. That way there can be fair parameters to who can use this option. And all we would simply do is just look at a business license application and when that was paid for, and just link that up to the sign grand opening permit, grand opening sign permit. And so that's just one grouping of possibilities we could do here. In conclusion, the planning staff agrees that this can be a good way to establish a good relationship with new businesses opening in the city, as this may help businesses get an initial boost in sales when becoming established in Horn Lake. And just an extra quick note on that, I meant to put it in the report. You could also have on there to include, just in the first initial run of this, any business that opened and established in Horn Lake in the last 3 years or so. There's been a few businesses that we have been approached that opened in Horn Lake that are in some not very visible areas, and they wanted some kind of grand opening signage. They wanted some kind of signage near the road, and we did not allow them because, as I said, yard banners are not allowed, feather flags are not allowed, bandit signs are not allowed. You're only allowed to currently attach any grand opening signage through a banner permit and then attach the banner to your building. So this just opens up another opportunity for new businesses to get some visibility when they open. And that concludes the presentation.
Do we have any questions for our director?
I
I have
do.
a question.
All
Go
right,
ahead.
Commissioner Fidel.
Okay. You're saying you have to define visibility. Is it gonna be based on sale? They've been there for 3 years, but they ain't making no money, business is slow. Location, we have to clearly define
Well,
what
so-
we're talking about.
For what we're doing is, like, you're right, we have to set some parameters, so it's not going to be every single property. So what we can do is, when an applicant comes in and they say, hey, I want grand opening signage, we can simply just go into our computer system and see if they've turned in a business license application in the past year. And so for us, if they've opened it, if they've opened up a new business in Horn Lake for the first time, we can see their business license application and see if it's less than 12 months old and say, okay, we'll let you get grand opening signage. Here's a grand opening sign permit.
So you're saying less than a year or less? 'Cause we
That's
have to
just what
put-
we're proposing. I
Okay,
mean,
that's fine, we want it in writing.
sure, yeah, and it could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We just thought maybe a 1 year would be fair.
All right, Commissioner Carter.
So in our proposed motion, it mentions yard banners, and you said that we wouldn't have anything like that. So am I thinking differently when I see yard banner than what you described, not being on posts like in the grass?
I'm sorry, ask that one more time.
In our proposed motion, it talks about, you know, that they can have any amount of yard banners, but they're supposed to be on a building. So I see a yard banner as taking, you know, T-posts, put them in the yard and tie a banner, and you just said we couldn't do that. So is there another
Currently,
of
right
yard banner?
now, no one is allowed to have yard banners anywhere in the city.
Okay, so we just need to make sure we omit that. I wanted to ask, because it was in the proposed motion, and I didn't want it to be a typo thing like they had down in the Capitol on the tax income.
Okay, sure. And just to clarify, right now, we do have a grand opening signage permit. It's our banner permit, but businesses will typically come in to get a banner for a few things. Most of them will come in for a grand opening banner that they have to attach to their building. Recently, Lenny's came in and paid for a banner permit because they were having breakfast items or something like that. Sometimes a business will come in and advertise, you know, half off on food or whatever, but they have to attach it to the building. We do not allow any businesses to have the metal poles with the banner out anywhere in the yard. But this grand opening proposal, this grand opening signage proposal, would allow that. So what we're proposing is to allow those yard banners, allow the bandit signs, allow the feather flags, allow the inflatables, and allow the pennant flags and the menu boards and anything of that nature. Does that answer the question?
I know we were doing other things to help promote them, but I thought the yard banners were, I just may have misunderstood. I thought those were never, we're not ever gonna do these. That's why I was wanting clarification.
Commissioner White?
Yeah,
Okay, Commissioner Stokes.
So Andrew, when it comes to re-grand openings, so that's another issue, because some people like to, rebrand their business, start over again, so we would not be permitting that because it's not within the 12 months.
I mean, that's one complication that we might run into, but I think we could possibly limit it to the same business name at the same address.
So you would have to change ownership to actually use these flags. Yes. Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's a possibility too. And like, just to throw this out there, like I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but one of the businesses that approached us was that arcade business at the corner of 51 and Nail Road. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that intersection. There's an empty lot, and then kind of like the strip mall on the back side, and there's a bunch of trees within the lot. And so all the trees within the lot are blocking the visibility of the wall sign, the permanent wall sign on this business. And so he's come in and he's requested a permit for feather flags. We said no. He requested a permit for a banner out in the yard. We said no. He requested permission for bandit signs out there. We said no. We've basically said no for every request he came to us for. And so he said, well, what can I have? And we said, all you're allowed to have is a banner attached to your building. And he said, well, this doesn't help me at all because I'm trying to get visibility up at Highway 51 in front of all the trees and close to the road. And so this proposal would allow him to have some kind of banner, some kind of yard sign, some kind of feather flag on the private property, not in the right-of-way, but closer to Highway 51. However, his business might be over a year old, so that's why I was also bringing up maybe a caveat for potentially businesses just in this first batch, businesses within the first 3 years, and then after 3 years, move it down to 1 year, something like that. But that's just one of the many options we can do.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm all for what you're saying, Director. My thing is, how many signs can they put out there? Because I don't want it to look like an upcoming election with signs everywhere. Because I live in Horn Lake, I don't want to see that at all. So,
Yeah, that's
I
a fair
want us
point.
to be clear on what we're doing. We don't want to open a can of
Fair
worms.
question.
Okay?
So as we're proposing it now, we're trying to keep it simple for code enforcement. Right now, we are letting businesses do whatever.
Free for all?
Like, for example, Scooters, they had feather flags and a yard banner. Chick-fil-A had, I believe, a banner and an inflatable on the roof. Some properties are really giant. Some properties are really small. I don't know if you want to limit signage by type, by number, because then it's going to get really constrained for, say like a business the size of Walmart opens up. How are you going to use the same numbers as a business such as Scooters that just opened up?
A big business like Walmart will put up maybe a bigger sign that you can see, but a small business, maybe they don't have that kind of money, but I still don't want to see 50 signs out there for the same thing. Because once you give people that option, they're going to do as they please, and that's what bothers me.
And I will mention that the time limit, we're seeing this as a compromise. Sure, it's going to look ugly and cluttered up, and there's going to be signs everywhere. That's kind of the point of a grand opening, is to be extremely visible and somewhat obnoxious about it. But with the time limit being 3 months, we're just letting them get it all out of their system, having all the signs they want, and then once you hit that 90 days, you got to take everything down. So we're just looking at it as kind of a compromise.
All right, go ahead, Commissioner Freeman.
I appreciate your proposal, Director. My concern is, have you considered which I hope it don't happen, the don'ts, like the human sign guy. They be doing all these, you know. I think that's a distracting when especially on 51 in Goodman, you know, guy doing, and accident didn't happen because this guy did some good, this traffic, he got caught, the driver got caught. Are we gonna have something like that in this proposal?
I mean, you could absolutely leave that off of the motion for sure. Right now, for exactly what you just said, you do have to get a permit for that. It's extremely limited. I don't remember it off the top of my
I
head.
just hope it's not on 51 in Goodman.
You can't do it in the right of way anyway, so that's gonna give you 15 feet off the pavement. So if you're doing it within 15 feet, the police can arrest you on the spot.
You know, I'm talking about the guy to be dangerous.
Yeah, that exact. Yeah, there is a distance requirement. In
It's
our
just an
ordinance.
observation, I don't know. So, thank you.
You could leave that off for sure.
Mr. Freeman, when does this happen? This guy doing all this?
The tax place, right over 51 in Goodman,
How am I missing?
by the act,
My kids
it don't,
always
you don't
point it
come
out.
that way. It happens, you know, it's sporadically, you know. I'm just concerned about. Yeah.
He need to learn how to dance. Andrew, so is it a possibility that you can do an amendment of how many signs based on the size, the frontage, where it won't get out of hand?
Yeah, that would create a lot more work for us,
I mean, it don't have to
planning
be
and
too-
code. I mean, because we would then have to request an application showing how many signs are you going to have, where are you going to have the signs, what size are your signs, and then code enforcement's going to have to go out and measure those signs and count those signs.
Don't worry about it, Andrew.
So
Okay.
it's a possibility.
Could we use the square footage back in on the application? Just say the applicant said
Right.
he's got an 8,000 square foot building, and that gets so many signs, and then the guy down the road's only got a 1,000 square foot building, and he only gets like, just a number on square footage.
Okay.
It's gonna be on your application for your business, because they have to list how big the business is.
Or a
Don't
range.
believe our business license applications have the square footage. I'll have to check. But I mean, we can just ask it on the new application, because what we're going to come up with is a grand opening signage application, and we can just have that as a line on there. So yeah, it's doable.
Any other questions for our director?
Just a thought, not really a question. I mean, has a period of 90 days, 25% of the year. It's a grand opening, so maybe we could just decrease it to 30 days. It's less clutter we have to worry about seeing a lot longer. It's a whole month. I mean, maybe, or even just 60 days. 90 days is a long time. I mean, that's 3 months of the year, so maybe we can look at that too.
I think if we put the amount assigned and give them the 90 days, because they need time, I think 30 days is too short. I'm just worried about the clutter. So I think if we put a limit, you know, a range basically, not 50 sign, you know, like 10 sign, 12 sign, where we know that it won't be a clutter for every business, whether big or small. We give them a range 1 to 12 sign for everybody, so they don't go over the limit, and give them the 90 days.
90 days, to me, makes more sense on a grand opening.
All right, any other comments, questions for our director? All right, we're going to open this up for public hearing. Does anybody like to speak? All right, go ahead, come on. You got 3 minutes, Mr. Prentice.
Prentice Mitchell, 3774 Conroe Circle. As a current business owner in Horn Lake And as a past business owner of over 15 years ago in Horn Lake, not having this in place at that time was detrimental to my business not surviving. Customers, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, Commissioner. Claire. 30 days is a short amount of time. 90 is kind of long, but as Andrew said, to get it out of the system, businesses, give them one good opportunity to get it done and move on from it. I think it's fair for that 90 days to get it out of the system. Can't come back 3 years later and say, I need some help. Well, we gave you the opportunity fair in the beginning. So, but using this flags, I'm a strong opponent of having flags. I believe in it. The dancing man, it's a bad idea. As a business owner, I'm saying it's a bad idea. Okay, but I think if we want to have this city to prosper with small businesses, they need to have every opportunity given to them to succeed. And you guys are on the front line to help make that happen. And if you can do anything to help make that happen, for a business to come here and want to stay here and do good business here, I think you guys should be open to at least hearing and see it happen. And if it doesn't work out, you guys come back and repeal what didn't work out. Thank you. You had a question? No question?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Prentice.
I have one more thing before, I know we're ready to move on. So I think we're in agreement with the 90 days. And I want to propose the 1 to 10 signs. And are we going to decide like the year, 1 year after you open, or 3 years? We need to do that before somebody make the motion so they can have their ducks in a row.
I guess, say that again, I didn't hear what you said.
I wanted the one, how many years after the business has been open, are we gonna allow them to advertise? That's what I wanna, so we can make the motion. 1 year after, 2 year after, 3 year after.
Well,
up to
it's gotta be at least within the first year.
Okay, within the first year.
Yeah, for a
Okay.
grand opening.
All right.
Now, I will put my thoughts out there is that I think that when you start limiting signs, I think you can get into the same,
You can get into
the
the
same
same
freedom of
political-
speech type things. Because
Okay.
if you're gonna allow one business to have 100 signs and the next business you can only
Everybody's
have
gonna be
3.
1 to 10.
What?
It's gonna be everybody allowed 1 to 10, big or small, however you put
Yeah,
it.
but,
I'm just
but
saying.
I just know that we just went through this regulations on
But this
freedom
is
of
a
speech, so.
temporary thing we're doing
I,
for new business.
as a business owner, I just like to have as many signs as I can, but, there is, but also I'm not gonna put more than I can get on the lot, because you're gonna need the customers to get in. If they can't get in because you got 100 signs on a small lot, they're not gonna be able, it's gonna be a point where it becomes
I do
too
not
much.
wanna see clutter.
I understand.
How do we prevent
And that's why
clutter?
90
So
days,
we're gonna
they
have
have to
90 days
remove
of
it.
clutter then?
And within 90 days, it being removed and enforced by the code enforcement, I think we should just at least try it and see what happens if we want to approve this. And like Mr. Prentice did mention, that is if we come back after a year and it comes back and it's become more than they can handle and the more that the city can handle,
Okay.
we start putting limitations on it.
I'm open to that.
So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. All right, do we have any other discussion? All right, do we have a motion?
Make sure I'm on the right one. Hold on. Might have moved on for the Grizzlies game. Let's see. After review of case number 2025-047, the Planning Commission recommends approval of amending the Code of Ordinance Appendix A zoning, Article 6, sign regulations, our specific provisions of temporary sign requirements, a permit, to add a section titled 6, grand opening signage for new businesses, which shall include language to allow with a permit and unlimited quantity of grand opening signage on the parcel for a period of 90 days, which shall include bandit signs, inflatables, feather flags, appendix flags, menu boards, yard banners, and wall banners, and which shall be limited to businesses that have a new business license application approved within a year from the date of grand opening signage permit application request.
Do we have a second?
Second,
All right, we have a second from Commissioner Vidal. Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
White? Yes. Stokes?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Kirkland? Yes. Freeman?
Yes.
Liddell?
Yes.
6 passes.
All right, moving on to our next case, which is very similar to the last one. Case number 2025-46, a request by the City of Horn Lake to repeal the prohibition of feather flags. The purpose of this request is to allow business to have better visibility throughout the year when desired. And I turn this back over to our director.
All right, thank you. So, I hope this isn't gonna be confusing. Okay, so that same exact section we were looking at earlier on the prohibited signs, we have feather flags at number 24. So if you can scroll down to number 24. Yeah, number 24, it just says feather flags. That's all it says. It's a prohibited sign, which means anywhere in the entire city, in any zone, on any kind of lot. And obviously, I'm going to preface this with saying you can't put any sign in any right-of-way. And you can put certain signs on private property with a permit, except if it's on this list, which we're seeing feather flags being on this list. So the planning department was approached with a request to put together this proposal on giving businesses the opportunity to have feather flags on their property year-round. And I left it really simple and open-ended here. You know, obviously, this could lead to clutter all over the city if every business chose to have feather flags on their property. You know, so there's different options you can still do here. You can redefine feather flags to be a certain height and width, material. You could limit it to stuck only in the grass, or limit it to you can only stick it in a concrete bucket, or whatever metal contraption holds them down. Because there's some feather flags where you can just put it on a hard surface that's weighted down, and some feather flags you have to stick it in the ground. As far as the presentation is right now, we're leaving it open-ended to all feather flags and unlimited numbers and types and dimensions for all properties year-round. That concludes that presentation. If anyone has any questions or discussion about that, feel free to let me know.
And once again, I noticed in the staff comments section, it says that if this creates an issue, we could always go back and put the prohibition back in.
Yeah, and this will be one of the easiest things to ever bring back, because it's just that one line in there.
All right, so do we have any questions for our director?
I have a question.
All right, go ahead.
I think we can alleviate all of that by saying, like, you can only put up the feather flag during holidays, specific holidays, instead of all year round. Is that a possibility?
I'm going to say no. You can't link it to any particular holiday or religious event or celebration, because you're going to have a business that, you know, believes something different that you forgot to put in your list, and it could cause some constitutional issues.
Andrew, I know a set of apartments right here on Tulane had an issue not too long ago because they invested in feather flags, and we've seen them over there all the time. But all of them was taken down by code enforcement. Would this have something to do with why we're amending it?
No, actually. So this particular one, this was actually requested by the mayor. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how much y'all work with the mayor, but he's extremely pro-business. I talk with the mayor every day. That's his favorite thing, is economic development and being pro-business. And so I know that there are some longtime businesses in Horn Lake that really like their feather flags and want their feather flags. And then there's some new businesses in the city that bring up feather flags whenever sales are dipping, or whenever they want new visibility, or whenever they have a new product, or just whenever they feel like it. So the mayor did not give me a particular business, a particular example, but he just brought this up to me one day recently and said he would like to see feather flags year round.
Right, well, it's good because normally the apartments will have something saying new space available.
I mean, I see this for apartment buildings. I see this for gas stations. I see it for fast food places. I see it for used car lots. I see this for a lot of those types of businesses.
Any other questions for our director?
Andrew, if I'm all for the feather flags, it's perfectly fine, but will code still be able to go and say something to them if people are abusing the privilege and they're leaving them out there and they're all torn up, they're faded, and they're just
Yeah,
there?
there is a part in the ordinance where your signs have to be in good condition. Now, it's up to the code officer to determine what's in good condition and what's in bad condition. And I feel like I have to bring this up. I'm sure we're all familiar with our very strange property lines in the right-of-ways. I'm just thinking of one, for example. I have so many property lines memorized in the city. If you look at where Scooters is, the Scooters property line from the road is here, and then you move down to the MAPCO, and then that property line comes out closer to the road here, and then you move down to the bank, and that property line moves all the way up almost towards the asphalt of the road. And I know that's kind of an anomaly, but these property lines shift a lot throughout the city. So you're going to have some property lines all the way up to the road, some property lines 10 feet back, 20 feet back, 30 feet back. And getting rid of this ban on feather flags would mean anybody could put a feather flag anywhere on their property. And so I know for a fact that if a feather flag is really close to the road and you're trying to pull out of a driveway, you can't see, and I'm not trying to talk bad about Scooters, but when Scooters put up their feather flags, they initially put them right up against the road. And when I had gone there to buy a drink, I couldn't see the cars coming down the road because of the feather flags. And so we could do something to get rid of this prohibition on feather flags, and then find a way to enforce maybe like a 10-foot rule, maybe a 5-foot rule at least, behind the property line. I just don't want to cause any potential wrecks or issues with feather flags being allowed everywhere, because they're much taller than bandit signs. They're very large when you're up against them.
All right, any other questions for our director? All right, we're going to open this up for a public hearing. Does anybody have anything they would like to add? All right, we're going to close the public hearing. All right, do we have any other discussion, or do we have a motion?
After review of case number 2025-046, the Planning Commission recommends approval of repealing the prohibition of feather flags in the prohibited signs section of the Code of Ordinance Appendix A zoning, Article 6 sign regulations.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
He said to give it like 10 feet or some, we're not gonna include that in the motion?
Does that need to be included in the motion, or is that part of your, isn't that already part of the?
I mean, it would be good to put it in the motion, but even if it's not in the motion, you can go ahead and leave it off. I'm going to put it in the report to the Board of Aldermen. I just need to brainstorm a really good way to put it somewhere in the ordinance. Because what we're doing now is taking it away from the prohibited list.
Yep.
And I'll have to like go back and then see how we can word it into another part of the ordinance.
All right, so we got a motion, and we have a second. Do we have any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Kirkland. Yes. Carter,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, we don't have any other business. Do we have any other concerns, comments? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same.
We put in.
Everybody wants to go home, okay.